So now we're on to the heart of the water cooling loop, the CPU block. Making sure you've done a test power up so that if you have any problems, you know that the board was good before you started fitting the block. Remove your motherboard, it will be much easier to work with in this state. And remove your original heatsink cooler. Here you can see AMD proving the reason why every CPU should use a landing grid array rather than zero insertion force pins, because they always come out the socket when you remove the cooler. Using some isopropylene alcohol to get your CPU clean. Once you've got the motherboard out, you can think about changing the backplate if you need to. The majority of modern water blocks do work with the standard backplate that comes with your motherboard. Now you're ready to fit your block. These aren't particularly more difficult to mount than standard heatsinks and fans. Again, you get different variety of backplates and mounting plates depending on which particular brand of CPU you've got, AMD and Intel. And significant difference really is that you have to actually disassemble the block in order to change the mounting plate. It's essentially sandwiched in between the top plate and the bottom plate of the block. You're actually going to want to take the block apart anyway, and the reason for doing this is that there are different jet plates and inserts inside those blocks, again dependent on what type of CPU that you've got. Those jet plates effectively put out a fine stream of water that goes all over the plate that is making contact with the integrated heat spreader, and it makes sure that you get a good circulation of water dissipating as much heat as is possible. The jet plates are different thicknesses depending on what CPU you've got, and the inserts have different thicknesses that allow the water to move through at a different rate as well. Disassembling the block is relatively straightforward, certainly for EK Water Block's Evo range. There are 4 screws on the bottom of the block, all of which are undo with an Allen key. Be careful when you take the block apart to make sure you don't lose the gasket that's inside the block. That's what ensures that you get a watertight seal. Read your instructions thoroughly and make sure that you select the correct jet plate and insert for your particular brand of CPU. There are small, tiny fins on the inside of the bottom plate of the block, and you need to make sure that the jet plate runs perpendicular to those lines. The easiest way to assemble all of this together is to insert the insert into the top part of the block. There are little grooves on the jet plate that allow that to drop into place, and then you can make sure that the block sits nicely, again making sure that those fins are perpendicular to the jet plate. 4 hex screws back down, screw them tight, making sure that your grommet is not damaged and is sitting properly, making contact between the 2 blocks. Mounting it is exactly the same process that you would follow for mounting any CPU cooler. Make sure that you screw down screws diagonally, alternating between the 2 corners, or the 4 corners should I say, until the blocks are screwed all the way down. You should screw those screws until they can't turn anymore. Screw those screws till you can't screw them anymore. So there we go, guys. This is a relatively straightforward bit of the process. The only bit that I would add to this is I tend to start to get into thinking about how I'm actually going to run my loop, particularly because I'm doing hardline tubing in this. Starting to have a think about whether I can get the inlet and outlet of the water block on the GPU and the CPU to line up. That's going to save me adding a whole load of fittings and doing unnecessary bends, and just make the whole process of getting it plumbed up much more straightforward. I actually had to change the orientation of the block relative to what it was when it actually came out of the packaging, because by doing that, the output of my GPU block is perfectly lined up with the inlet of my CPU block, which is going to make life infinitely easier. So there we go, guys. That's how you mount a CPU water block. We're well into the thick of getting this build complete. Please stick with me. If you're not already subscribed, make sure that you do so that you don't miss all the great content to come. Please like and share this video, and I'll see you in my next one.